I saw my parents pressing a cigarette on my grandson, so I rushed to the house. The horrifying hidden truth is revealed as the night had deepened, and the house was eerily quiet. I sat on the couch, flipping through a photo album in my hands. It contained numerous pictures of my son, his wife, and their son, my beloved grandson. As I gazed at a photo capturing my grandson's innocent smile, a grin naturally spread across my face. My name is Rachel. Even now, in my 63s, my heart warms whenever I think of my son's family. My husband passed away a few years ago, and I currently live alone. But the presence of my grandson, Tommy, has been a source of comfort for me. My son, Carson, is a sincere 35-year-old man who works as an engineer at a company after graduating from college. He is a family man and adores Tommy. Carson's wife, Nora, is 30 years old and a homemaker. She was a bright and kind woman when they first married. She excels at cooking and passionately focuses on creating nutritionally balanced meals, always mindful of the family's health. Nora actively participates in community activities and is surrounded by many friends. However, over the past few months, her attitude has drastically changed, and she has grown cold towards me. Tommy is my treasure. At 3 years old, he is a very energetic and curious child. He loves animals, especially dogs and cats. Every weekend, my joy has been taking Tommy to the park. The days of being healed by his innocent smile and sweet voice continued, but recently that smile has disappeared. One day, I remember visiting Carson's house. Nora opened the door, but her face was cold as if she was trying to turn me away. "I'm busy today. Can you see Tommy another time?" I was puzzled by her words. From inside, I heard Tommy's voice. "Grandma, where are you?" Ignoring Tommy's voice, Nora closed the door. Since that day, I couldn't stop worrying about Tommy. I used to play with him often and feel reassured seeing his innocent smile, but recently that smile has vanished. Something has changed. Carson has also been calling me less frequently lately, and I can't shake the feeling that he's hiding something. He only says work is busy, avoiding any specific conversations. Despite noticing the change in my son, I avoided pressing him deeply, fearing that our parent-child relationship might crumble. As those days continued, I gradually grew anxious and suspicious. When I suddenly woke up in the middle of the night, I couldn't get Tommy out of my mind. "Is he okay?" I asked myself repeatedly. One night I had a dream. In it, several children were crying out for help from the darkness. Waking up in the middle of the night, I had a terrible premonition. The clock had passed midnight. Despite the late hour, I decided to go to Carson's house. I hastily put on my coat and left the house. On the way to Carson's house, just a few minutes' drive away, anxiety and fear swirled in my chest. I felt that something might be happening. When I arrived at Carson's house, it was pitch dark and eerily quiet. I entered the yard and quietly peeked through the window. In the middle of the living room, I saw little Tommy shivering. Carson and Nora stood in front of him, and their shouting voices could be heard from outside the window. "Stop crying!" Carson yelled, pressing a lit cigarette against Tommy's skin. Tommy, with tears streaming down his face, whispered in a trembling voice, "I'm sorry. I won't cry anymore. Please forgive me." At that moment, I lost my reason with the sole thought of saving Tommy. I smashed the window and rushed into the house. "What are you doing? Stop it!" I shouted as I swept Tommy into my arms. "Mom, what are you doing here at this hour?" Carson was surprised, but Nora calmly smirked. "This is discipline. It has nothing to do with you." "Discipline? This is abuse!" I retorted, shaking with anger. Tommy trembled in my arms. "Grandma, I'm scared. Help me." "It's okay, Tommy. Grandma is here, so don't worry about anything." "Hey!" Carson shouted. "This doesn't concern you, Mom." "Doesn't concern me? Tommy is my grandson. I will never allow this," I replied resolutely. Carson grew irritated and approached me. "Don't interfere with us." "Are you saying it's right to abuse Tommy?" I argued in a strong tone. "If you continue this, I will call the police." Carson seemed to hesitate for a moment, but quickly returned to a cruel expression. "Tommy is our son. How we raise him is our freedom. This cannot be allowed. Tommy is a child who must be protected." Holding Tommy close, I declared with strong will to Carson and Nora, "I will do anything to protect him." Nora stared at me with cold eyes. Cradling Tommy, I decided to move to another room for the time being. Feeling Tommy's trembling body, I headed towards the back room. "Grandma, I'm scared," Tommy whispered in a small voice. "It's all right, Tommy. Grandma is here with you." I tried to reassure him, but my heart was filled with anxiety and fear. However, Carson stood in my way. "Where do you think you're going?" His eyes held clear hostility. "Right now, I don't think you two should be with Tommy," I said, holding Tommy tightly. Carson grabbed my arm and pulled hard. "Don't do as you please." "Let go, Carson." I shook off his hand and started walking towards the back room. The door to the back room was slightly ajar. As I entered, the room was dark, lit only by a dim light bulb. Old furniture and boxes were piled up in the corner of the room. I walked to the middle of the room, holding Tommy. At that moment, I felt something strange under my feet. I stared at the floor, and when I lifted the old carpet, I found a door hidden there, like an entrance to a basement. I didn't know this house had a basement. With a vague sense of foreboding, I decided to open that door. I set Tommy down beside me for a moment and opened the door. As I felt the cold air, I heard a faint voice from below. "Help!" It was a weak voice. I was so shocked that I felt terror. Holding Tommy again, I descended the stairs with trembling hands and stepped into the basement. To my utter disbelief, I found several children trapped there. They were wearing filthy clothes, their faces pale with fear and exhaustion. "Who are these children? Where did they come from?" My mind was in turmoil, but I composed myself upon seeing the children's expressions. I had to help them now. "It's okay, don't be afraid," I gently called out to them as I approached. "Will you help us?" one little girl asked, crying. "Yes, I'm going to help you. I'll get you out of here." Although I didn't fully understand what was happening, I instinctively knew that I had to get these children to safety somehow. So I told them, "Everyone stays calm. I'm going to lead you out of here, so from now on, listen to what I say and act accordingly." Then I took their hands and had them climb the stairs one by one. After rescuing the children from the basement, I returned to the living room. There, an angry Carson and Noura were waiting. Their expressions held no hint of remorse. Rather, they were overflowing with hatred. "What have you done, Mom?" Carson shouted. "You've ruined everything." "Who are these children? Tell me why you were abusing them and Tommy," I retorted with a resolute attitude. "It's none of your business, is it?" Noura screamed. "This is our problem. You don't understand anything." "No, it is my business. Tommy is my grandson, and these children are so frightened. I'm here to protect them." "Explain why you're doing this," I said in a stern tone. Carson hesitated for a moment, but then began to speak after a deep sigh. "It was all for the money. For money." My voice trembled with anger. "We had no choice." Carson's voice was tinged with anguish. "Our debts had grown too much, and we had no prospect of repaying them. If someone didn't make a sacrifice, we were about to go bankrupt. So after taking in the children, we made deals through the internet. We were paying off our debts with the money we earned from selling them." "I can't believe you treated children like objects." "It wasn't that I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it," I said. "I know," Carson said in a low voice, "but we didn't know what to do. Our debts had ballooned out of control. We were desperate, too." I looked at Noura. She had a bitter expression. "In the past, my parents abused me, too, so I know all too well how important it is for children to be obedient." "That's no excuse for abuse," I argued. "If you suffered from abuse yourself, why are you repeating the same thing with Tommy and these other children? And who exactly are these children?" I demanded. Noura began to explain, averting her eyes. "These children are ones we took in from the streets or adopted from orphanages like me in the past. They had nowhere to go, so we took them in and were educating them." "What you did is not education, this is abuse," I said, shaking with anger. "No matter how much you've suffered until now, sacrificing these children is unacceptable." "Noura has been suffering too," Carson shouted. "Noura can't escape her past trauma. That's why she ended up trying to control these children in the same way." "That's not an excuse," I replied with strong conviction. "No matter how much Noura has suffered, it's not a reason to hurt others." Hey, pause for a moment. Would you care to support us? Like this video and subscribe for more. Now let's dive back into the story. With those words, I reached for the phone in the living room. I intended to call the police. However, Noura snatched the phone from my hand. "What are you doing?" Noura said with an angry expression. "I'm calling the police for help," I shouted back. "Treating these children like this is unacceptable." "I won't let you call the police." Noura smashed the phone against the wall, breaking it. I flinched for a moment, but quickly pulled out my smartphone to try calling the police this time. Carson grabbed my smartphone with incredible force. "Mom, please stop," Carson said in a low voice. "We have to escape from here." I thought, everyone follows me. I signaled to the children with my eyes and started running towards the door of the house. When I opened the door, the cold night wind greeted us. We ran desperately through the darkness. "This way!" I entered the yard of the neighboring house. The children desperately followed me. "Wait, come back!" Carson was shouting from the house, but I proceeded without looking back. I knocked on the door of the neighboring house. "Please help." After a while, John, the neighbor, opened the door. His sleepy face instantly changed to a surprised expression. "Rachel, what's going on at this late hour?" "Please call the police. These children are being abused," I pleaded desperately. John quickly grasped the situation and welcomed us into his home, saying, "Come on in." He took out his smartphone and reported to the police. "They said they'll be here right away," John informed me after finishing his conversation with the police. "It's okay now," I said, hugging the children. "The police are coming and they'll protect you." The children clung to me, crying, and Tommy also had a relieved expression on his face. After a little while, police sirens began to sound in the distance. Inside John's house, the children were clinging to me but gradually regaining their composure. "It's all right now. The police are coming to help," I told them gently. Soon, red and blue lights streamed through the windows, and several police cars stopped in front of John's house. Police officers could be seen hurrying towards the house. "Over here!" John opened the door to welcome the officers. I stood up and said to them, "Please protect these children. They're being abused by my son and his wife." "Understood. We'll handle this immediately." One officer nodded firmly and requested backup on his radio. At that moment, Carson and Noura could be seen outside. They approached with anger-filled expressions, shouting at the police officers. "What are you doing? This is our family matter," Carson protested vehemently. "It appears these children are being abused. You'll need to accompany us to the police station," the officer responded calmly. "Don't be ridiculous. This has nothing to do with you, right?" Noura raised her voice, but the officers resolutely restrained Carson and Noura. "What are you doing? Let go!" Carson struggled and resisted, but the officers firmly held him down and handcuffed him. "We're arresting you on suspicion of child abuse," the officer declared. Carson and Noura were taken away amid anger and confusion. I held Tommy and the other children, watching the scene unfold. The children were then safely taken into custody by the police officers. One officer said, "We'll do our utmost to ensure they can live in a safe environment from now on." "It's okay now," I whispered to Tommy. "Everyone can go to a safe place now." After the children were taken into protective custody by the police, they were sent to a facility. As for Tommy, of course, I decided to take him in. "You don't have to be afraid anymore, Tommy. Grandma will always be with you." I held Tommy tightly. Carson and Noura were prosecuted for abusing the children. On the day of the trial, I went to the courthouse with Tommy. Taking the witness stand was painful, but it was unavoidable to reveal the truth. "Grandma, it's okay. I'm here with you." Tommy squeezed my hand with his small hand, encouraging me. With trembling hands, I took the stand and began to speak about Carson and Noura's actions. They instilled fear in the children and inflicted deep physical and emotional wounds. As this child's grandmother, I cannot allow such acts. I spoke while holding back tears, with Tommy by my side in the courtroom. The prosecutor exposed Carson and Noura's cruel actions one by one while presenting evidence. Each time the details of how they confined and abused the children were revealed, the courtroom was engulfed in a breathtaking silence. The defendants engaged in continuous abuse against the children, and their actions are extremely malicious, leaving no room for leniency, the prosecutor stated in a stern tone, and then delivered the final verdict. The defendants, Carson Johnson and Noura Johnson, are each sentenced to 25 years in prison. The moment the judge made the announcement, the courtroom erupted in murmurs and applause. Carson and Noura covered their faces and broke down crying. "Mom, Tommy, I'm sorry," Carson mumbled while weeping, but his words no longer resonated in our hearts. After the trial, I thought about what to do with the children. They needed a safe and secure place. After consulting with a lawyer, I decided to take them in as well. Rachel, are you going to take them in? The lawyer asked cautiously. Yes, they need a home and I can provide that home for them, I answered with strong determination. I understand, let's proceed with the process. It may take some time, but your love will create the best environment for them. The lawyer smiled and began preparing the necessary documents. As the process progressed, I spent time with the children and worked to gain their trust. Every day I played with them, talked with them, and made sure they felt safe and comfortable. Finally, the day came when I formally took the children in. The final procedures were completed and I officially became their guardian. From now on, you are all part of my family. You can live here with peace of mind, I said to the children with a smile. Tommy squeezed my hand and said, Grandma, thank you for protecting us. The other children also expressed their gratitude to me. Seeing their innocent smiles, I felt truly happy. As I watched the children playing in the park, a woman approached. She was a staff member from the local child welfare facility and had been supporting us. Hello, Rachel, she greeted me with a smile. The children seem to be doing well. Yes, thanks to you, I replied with gratitude. We couldn't have come this far without everyone's support. I'm glad to hear that, she smiled kindly. By the way, about Carson and Noura, I looked at her in surprise. Did something happen to them? They are undergoing a rehabilitation program in prison, and I've heard they are facing their mistakes and reflecting on them, she continued in a gentle tone. I hope they sincerely repent. I listened to her words with mixed feelings. While it was important for Carson and Noura to acknowledge their mistakes and repent, it wouldn't heal our past pain. Still, I couldn't help but wish for them to change. Months passed, and our new life continued with peaceful and tranquil days. The children gradually freed themselves from their past fears and grew with a bright future in mind. We spent each day deepening our bonds as a family in our new home. Tommy attended a new school and made many friends. His energetic smile was adored by his classmates, and he enjoyed his school life. After school, playing soccer with his friends became his daily routine. Grandma, we had a soccer match today. I scored a goal, Tommy reported excitedly. That's wonderful, Tommy. You're very skilled, I praised him while patting his head, delighted by his growth. His smile was my greatest treasure. The other children also adapted to their new lives. Many of them received specialized counseling to heal their emotional wounds. In our home, we prioritized creating an environment where they could feel safe and showering them with love. A girl named Olivia began to exhibit a talent for art. She loved to draw, and her artwork started decorating the walls of our home. One day, she showed me a picture. Aunt Rachel, look at this. It's a picture of flowers that I drew, Olivia said proudly. It's truly beautiful, Olivia. Your paintings always warm my heart. I praised her talent and encouraged her to draw more. Her art became a healing presence for the whole family. A boy named Jamie excelled in sports and became obsessed with American football. He joined a local team and looked forward to the weekend games. Aunt Rachel, I was chosen as the MVP today, Jamie reported happily. That's amazing, Jamie. Your hard work paid off. I patted his back in encouragement. His smile was proof that he was overcoming his past struggles. A child named Lily made many friends at her new school and became an outgoing child. She was sociable and loved to take on new challenges every day. Every time I saw her smile, I felt truly happy. Grandma, I learned a new dance at school today, Lily said joyfully. That's wonderful, Lily. Next time, teach me that dance too. I smiled at her cheerful demeanor. Her energy and brightness brought vigor to the whole family. We made sure to have family time every weekend to deepen our bonds as a family. We enjoyed various activities like watching movies and cooking together. Through this, the children fostered a sense of security and began to develop an awareness of being part of a family. One day we were enjoying a picnic in the garden. Tommy and the other children were playing on the lawn. Grandma, when I grow up, I want to be a soccer player, Tommy said with sparkling eyes. That's a wonderful dream, Tommy. Grandma will support you in pursuing any dream you have, I replied gently. The other children also shared their dreams. Olivia said she wanted to be an artist. Jamie aspired to be a professional American football player, and Lily dreamed of becoming a dancer. I will support all of your dreams. Your futures are bright, I said to them with a smile. We cherished the time we spent together and deepened our family bonds. Although the painful experiences of the past may never completely disappear, we vowed to move forward together. Let's continue to live happily together forever, I silently pledged in my heart, watching over the children's smiles and taking a new step forward. Let's conclude the story shortly. The years that followed were filled with laughter, love, and the gentle hum of a family finally whole. The children thrived, their childhoods no longer haunted by fear, but filled with the promise of a bright future. Olivia's artwork graced art shows, Jamie's football skills earned him a scholarship, and Lily's dancing was a joy to behold. Tommy, ever the energetic one, became a star on his soccer team, his smile as bright as the sun. I, Rachel, found solace in their happiness. The pain of the past was a shadow, a reminder of the darkness they had escaped, but it was a shadow that could no longer touch them. I watched them grow, their laughter echoing through the house, their dreams taking flight, and I knew with a heart full of gratitude that I had done the right thing. The children, once lost and broken, had found a home, a family, and a future filled with hope, and in their happiness, I found my own. After experiencing the full journey of our story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching and see you in the next story.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales. This was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully." Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1, if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, "I'm moving to the sales department soon." If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. "Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it." On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. "Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived." I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. "They look good." "What are you talking about?" "These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one?" As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself. This could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. "Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay?" I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. "Yes, I'm inviting my father." "That's great. I might invite my parents too." I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.